Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is GABNET, the Great American Broadcast Network.
This is an Internet Network news break. IP Pingsley reporting. Our top story, the Great American Broadcast Network, otherwise known as GABNET, is now a TuneIn partner. TuneIn, the world's largest audio network, has joined forces with GABNET, the world's most innovative talk network. GABNET's partnership with TuneIn means that listeners now have 3 main ways to listen to GABNET programming: GABNET.net, TuneIn.com, and the convenient TuneIn app for smartphones. To participate in the network's innovative citizen panels on GABNET programs, use Skype and type the handle GABNET Live, or call on your phone 347-352-0079. For more information on this network, its programs, and its hosts, log on to GABNET.net. That's GABNET.net. This has been an Internet Network news break.
Hi, everybody. This is Alex Bennett, and I've had a long and interesting trip. It's called life. And for years, people have demanded that I write a book about it, and while I've been a writer, my main talent has always been that of a broadcaster. Over a year ago, I decided not to write the book, but using my best skill, I decided to tell it. It's called Life in the Passing Lane, and I described it as an audio biography. It's presented in 30-minute chapters, so it's easy to binge listen. And you can access it on the GABNET page by clicking on Life in the Passing Lane and going to a page with every single episode, plus some extras. If you want to access it on your mobile device, that's easy too. It's on iTunes. It's Life in the Passing Lane, an audio biography by me. I'm Alex Bennett. Hey everybody, this is Alex Bennett, host of the Ramble, heard here and seen here on GABNET, Tuesday through Fridays, live at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and I got some big news for you. Our program has moved its live video from Facebook Live to YouTube Live. After extensive tests in our GABNET laboratories of at least 10 minutes, our mind was made up and we've come to the conclusion that YouTube is superior not only in video quality, but audio as well. And then there's the ease of watching it. Here's what you do. Simply point your browser to youtube.com/Bolo Bennett /live. That's youtube.com/Bolo Bennett, BOLOBENNETT /live. And you're there. The player is waiting, and you do nothing, and when the show begins, so does the player. Couldn't be simpler. In fact, tag that page as a permanent tab on your browser, and you're ready to go. And if all of this is too vexing for you, well, just go to GABNET.net near showtime, and the player in the middle of the page will start to play when we're on. We're thrilled with the new quality our move has provided, and while you're there, would you do me a favor and please subscribe to our channel? No, I beg you to. Hey, listen to me, I'm groveling, okay? I know, it's pathetic. I'm sorry, I'm debasing myself, and I really shouldn't be. Please.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is GABNET, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hey! Yes, everybody. I'm not going to show my picture yet because, well, I don't want to show my picture yet. Okay? Anyway, let me see here. Oh, I thought I was hearing a hum. I'm not hearing a hum. I'm not hearing a hum. No, not really hearing a hum. Okay. Got all kinds of things I have to worry about here. All the technology. And it starts vexing me the older I get. Anyway, hey, listen, I thought we'd start off tonight by checking in with an old friend, a really old friend. Ladies and gentlemen, he's round and he's brown. No, that's not. I can't. That doesn't work. You're actually.
But it rhymes. Well, that's good.
Thin and you're grim. I think that's maybe the best way to put it.
Grim and slim.
Grim and slim. And his name, Larry, is Larry Bubbles Brown.
Yes. Hello.
The bubbles connoting a certain amount of happiness and joy, and a joie de vivre where it comes to life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How you doing?
Good. I heard a name the other day, and I could have wikied it, but I wanted to see because I said I bet Alex knows a lot about her, but yeah, Hedy Lamarr.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. It's funny because I was just watching a show last night. It's one of these sci-fi shows called Timeless, in which they go back to various periods, right? Mm-hmm. And they go back to Hollywood in 1941, and they meet up with Hedy Lamarr. And, of course, the whole story about Hedy Lamarr is revealed there. But she was also another subject of another show I saw about time travel a couple of months ago. She also, I think, I can't remember. I think in the show Agent Carter she played a part, too. So what do you want to know about Hedy Lamarr? It's the most fascinating.
Well, I saw something on TV, and there was just a little. I caught it at the end. There was a little blurb. It's something about she was a genius, and was she a spy or something?
No.
And that's all I heard.
Okay, here. You want me to give you a little short thing of Hedy Lamarr's life, and it's a pretty fascinating one. She, okay. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't know who Hedy Lamarr was. She was maybe one of the most beautiful women to ever grace a Hollywood screen. She was discovered, she had done her first film in, I think it was Sweden where she was from, and it was called Ecstasy, and she became sensational because she was naked. I don't think she did it under the name Hedy Lamarr, but anyway, as time went on, one thing led to another, and she was working Europe, and she met up with this guy who was best friends with Adolf Hitler. And she used to go to dinners with Hitler.
Wow.
But while this was going on, I mean, she hated Hitler. She hated the Nazis. She hated her life with this husband. But this husband, I think, was involved in some kind of scientific pursuits. And so she learned a lot while she was hanging around him. And then at one point, she just said, I can't take this whole Nazi thing. I can't take his involvement with Hitler. And she got out of Germany. And I think on the boat over or something, she was discovered by Louis B. Mayer, who said, you're gorgeous. Why don't you come to Hollywood and let me give you a screen test? So she went to Hollywood, did a screen test, and next thing you know, she's in the movies. I think I'm getting it right. I'm sure if I had my friend Shecky here, he would tell me where I'm getting it wrong. But I hope I'm getting most of it right. The most important part is what's coming up, not what went in the past. So she made movies, but she also kind of liked to putter around with scientific stuff. And she had a friend, his name was George Antheil, who was a motion picture composer. And together, this was the start of World War II, and they needed something for torpedoes, I believe it was. And it was called, and they invented a thing so that a torpedo couldn't be detected, so that other torpedoes could knock it out of the water, called frequency skipping. Don't ask me to explain it to you. I'm not a scientist. But they came up with this concept of frequency skipping. In other words, so that you can't zero in on the torpedo, or even on a bomb, I guess. It changes frequencies constantly, so that nothing can aim in on it. All right? That's the short of it. All right? Well, forget about what frequency skipping is and what the technology of it is. The Defense Department never used it. However, they did in 1952. They decided to finally use it because they saw a value in it. And that value became things like, I think radar was an outgrowth of frequency skipping. And what you have today that is the result of Hedy Lamar's invention is Wi-Fi, cell phones, all the stuff, the basic thing that makes that work in it is frequency skipping. And when in I think it was in like 1986 or 80s or something like that, she tried to claim the rights to the patent, which had expired, and she couldn't. Had she been able to, think of how much money that woman would have been worth.
Jesus.
But she invented what you have to thank Hedy Lamarr for your cell phone, okay? A lot of other things too, but cell phones, that's what your life is better for. And it was all because of Hedy Lamarr, one of the most gorgeous women ever to work movies. And she had this
hot genius.
She was a hot genius, yes. Now, there's some people that claim, oh, well, she kind of grabbed the idea from somebody else, and maybe it was her Nazi friends in Germany when she was hanging with them that she got these ideas. But no matter how it came about, she gave the world frequency hopping, as well as George Antheil. So we should thank him as well. She lived to be a ripe old age, a crabby old woman, and she just was a terrific inventor.
Okay, but not a huge film career when she got here?
Oh, her film career was huge.
Really?
Yes. She starred in Cecil B. DeMille's Samson and Delilah, for an example. But she had a continual movie career here, and is forever remembered as a joke in Blazing Saddles, where the governor of the state is known. What do you call it? The guy. I'm trying to remember what part. It wasn't the Mel Brooks part, but it was the part that what's his name played. Was a what was he? He was like a sheriff, or no, he wasn't a sheriff. He was like a marshal or something. Whatever. The bad guy in the picture was named Hedy Lamarr.
Hedley.
And every now and then they go, Hedy? And he goes, no, Hedley. So that's how she's known. But
I knew you would know about her.
Oh, that's one of the stories. That's one of my favorite stories. There's a documentary that came out a while back on the whole thing on Hedy Lamarr. I think I have it here, and it's just a fascinating story, because like if you found out that Marilyn Monroe invented the atom bomb. Yeah. I mean, it was like, here's this woman who's nothing but a sex object on screen. She's gorgeous, just ravishingly gorgeous, and then you think she invented my cell phone, or what's in my cell phone that makes my cell phone work? And the answer is yes. You next time you hear of Hedy Lamarr, remember that name. If you know there's a movie on television, watch it and see what she looks like, because she was gorgeous. She was just gorgeous. So
incredible.
Yeah. So where did you hear about it?
Like I said, there's some program. I just got the very end about Hedy Lamarr, and she was a genius and blah. And that's all I heard. So
yeah.
I thought rather than wiki it, I'd talk to you.
Yeah. That's the story of Hedy Lamarr. She's one of the great stories in Hollywood. I mean, that's not a story you expect to hear.
Did she marry anybody famous over here?
I don't think she had any famous husbands. Let me look her up here a second here, and we'll find out. I don't think she married anybody famous here. She may not have even gotten married. I don't know. I forget now. Hedy Lamarr, Wikipedia. Oh God, there's her picture. She's just gorgeous. Early life, European career. First marriage in August 1993. Married Mandy, an Australian military arms merchant. That's who he was. A munitions manufacturer, reputedly the third richest man in Austria. She was 18 years old. He was 33. And he was an extremely controlling husband, and she strongly objected to her simulated orgasm scene in Ecstasy and prevented her from pursuing an acting career. She claimed that she was a virtual prisoner, and then he had business with the fascist government in Italy, selling munitions to Mussolini. You can see why she left the guy.
Yeah,
okay.
Daddy Warbucks.
Yeah. In 1937, she met Louis B. Mayer, who was scouting talent in Europe. See, I was close on that one.
Yeah, you're right on.
Yeah, persuaded her to change her name to Hedy Lamarr. She had been known as the Ecstasy Lady, choosing the surname homage to a beautiful silent star, Barbara Lamarr. Okay, well, that gives us that. And then it says, although Hedy Lamarr had no formal training and primarily self-taught, she worked in spare time on various hobbies and inventions, which included an improved traffic stoplight and a tablet that would dissolve in water to create carbonated drink. The beverage was unsuccessful. Lamarr herself said it tasted like Alka-Seltzer. Among a few and over inventiveness was aviation tycoon Howard Hughes. He discussed her relationship with Hughes during an interview, saying that while they dated, she actively supported her tinkering hobbies. Blah 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 blah. Now, where does it say what she invented? It doesn't say here. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Oh, here we go. With the knowledge she had gained about torpedoes from her first husband, that's where I was right too, she thought of creating a frequency hopping signal that could be tracked, that could not be tracked or jammed. But she contacted a friend and pianist, George M. Thiel, to help develop the device during that, and he succeeded by synchronizing a miniaturized player piano mechanism with radio signals. And they crafted designs for frequency hopping system, which they patented. Okay? So there you go. Later years, Lamarr became a nationalized citizen. Does it say she married anybody? She was arrested for shoplifting. I forgot that one.
That's not good.
Yeah, the charges were eventually dropped. There were some claims that she wasn't shoplifting. It was an accident. You know, one of those things where she picked something up. And,
yeah.
You know. It doesn't say anything about being married to anybody else. Wow. Yeah. So I guess she didn't marry anybody
else. That's a strong woman.
Yeah. I think she had a relationship, though, with George N. Thiel, her co-inventor on that deal. But on the show last night, the guy who goes back to the past to meets her, tells her, "Hey, listen, in 1952, renew that patent." You know, so when they come back to the present, it turns out that Hedy Lamarr made $30 billion in her lifetime.
Hilarious.
But you know, I mean, that would have been a lot of money for her. You know, and she did sue. She did try to get the patent back, but she couldn't. So, you know, and she was pretty old by the time she went after that. Oh, wait a minute. Spouses. Here it is. Fritz Mandy, who we mentioned. Jean Markey in 1939. Then she married Tony Stauffer. Then she married Howard Lee. And then she married Louis Boys. Well, and she has 3 children. She had 3 children. And, but you know, I said I didn't know if she was married. She was married, what, 1, 2, 3, 5 times? Wow. But, you know, she was an independent woman.
So she did a nude movie in the 30s. That's pretty...
Yeah, well, that was the start of her career. She hadn't done anything before that, and it's just seen. You can still get it, you know. When she died, I put a picture of her up on my Facebook page, and it was the picture of her coming out of the water in ecstasy, topless, and Facebook censored it. Yeah, and I wrote Facebook a nasty letter saying, This was fair comment on a woman whose life was exceptional, you know, and this was her in many ways, this was her most famous moment because this picture became a sensation in the United States too. Because hey, there's a nude woman coming out of the water. It's just a brief scene, But so what the hell,
Well, that's why their stock is diving now.
Any other questions, Sensei?
See, I can give you some name. You can go on for 10, 20 minutes with it. It's great.
Well, because, I think it's one of those names that people, A, shouldn't dismiss as just another pretty face and should know what she did. And it's happening more and more because people are now putting it in fiction. She becomes a character in fiction, like the show called Timeless, because it is a fascinating story, and she deserves to be recognized. And it's not that she invented something that we no longer use. I mean, the basic premise for what she was doing is used in cell phones today. I think it's used in other things too, like radar and GPS and whatever. I can't tell you all the things that it's used in. But
somebody should make a movie about her.
They never have done a movie about her. So anyway. Well, there's a Broadway play called Frequency Hopping that features the life of Lamar and Antheil.
Really?
Yeah. In May 20th, 2010, Lamar was selected out of 150 people to be featured in a short film launched by the British Computer Society. Public exhibits. The story of Lamar's frequency hopping spread spectrum invention was explored in an episode of Science Channel show Dark Matters. It goes on and on. There are a lot of places she was depicted. They don't mention, the main villain in Agent Carter in the late 1940s. That's a show that was on a few years ago. Whitney Frost was a character modeled on Hedy Lamarr.
Okay.
Yeah, and Death and Film Awards doesn't have anything else there, but she did a lot of movies. You can go back and Google. Go to IMDb and just put in Hedy Lamarr.
Okay. She lived a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. She lived to be. Hold on a second. Let me go back to my Wikipedia, which is the godsend. Age 85.
Okay.
Yeah. She died in 2000. But yeah, I do remember she then later got stuck for that shoplifting charge, whatever that was about. I can't remember now, but it turns out I think that she really didn't do it. It was a what can we call it, a mistake. But whatever, we owe her a lot. So
we can forgive her one shoplift for frequency hopping.
Yeah, thanks. But the thing was that the Defense Department didn't use it till 1952, and then they used it in against Cuba or something. I can't remember what war they used it in something, maybe in the Korean War or whatever. But they never used it. They took the invention, they bought it from them, and put it on the shelf and never used it. And then in 1952, they started using it, but by then she hadn't even thought about renewing the patent on it, and so consequently, the patent fell into what is essentially public domain.
She's been a billionaire.
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely, but somewhere there should be a statue to her. I don't know, holding a cell phone or something. I don't know.
Topless.
Yeah. There are a lot of other, people who have done stuff that just get you later on in life you find out they did that, and you go, hey, that's amazing, Then she's one of the major ones. So anyway, how's everything out in California?
80 degrees and allergy riddled.
Allergy riddled, yeah.
Yes. God, it's getting so crowded. You can't move around here anymore. I gotta move.
I have not been back to San Francisco. Oh God, I think since Marjorie and I got married and we were in Lake Tahoe. think it's the last time I was back in San Francisco, so that would have to be 6 years ago. And a guy, Buddy Love, staying with me here, and he said that it's pretty nasty in that city.
Oh, it's horrible. It's just high-rise buildings everywhere. They've destroyed Van Ness Avenue.
I mean, I wouldn't recognize it, right?
No, they've taken all the. There used to be a island in Remember, Van Ness Avenue had trees and stuff down the middle of it. Those have all been ripped out.
Why?
Because they took 2 lanes out. They're going to run buses down the middle of Van Ness, so there's only 2 lanes for cars now. It looks like crap.
Oh boy. There goes a beautiful city. And
well, when you get back here, you'll see it. I think you'll be.
The end will be when they use the cable cars for kindling wood.
Yeah. You're going to be very depressed when you see your hometown.
You know what happens with certain cities, and it's happened here in New York. New York is not the city it used to be. It's not the city I fell in love with. That big, dirty city that never slept. That city. Mm-hmm. Now everybody goes to sleep at 11. Yeah, the same things kind of happen here, like down in Times Square. They've turned that into a place where people can sit out at tables in the middle of the fucking street. And they've turned it into 1 lane or so going through Times Square. It's the same kind of thinking. But the problem is that you have in San Francisco a bunch of people who came to the Bay Area, weren't born there, weren't raised there. I don't think you were raised there, but you certainly lived there long enough to have an affinity for the town.
Right.
But I was born there, and then they want to turn it into their ideal of what a city should be. And it's not but it's the ideal of what Cleveland is, or whatever. And it's not taking what is and respecting its style and its feel and so on. And San Francisco was a very tactile city. I mean, you really felt it. It was a city that had a lot of beauty to it in its architecture and everything. And if that's being ripped away, boy, that's not my town.
When I first came here, the thing that they didn't want here, I remember they didn't want high rises. Now it's just full of them.
Wow!
But it had to look like a European city. Now there weren't tall buildings, and it was very cool.
Wow! Jeez Almighty! I just that's it's just sad. It's very sad. I hate to see it happening.
Yeah, there's this huge building now. I think it's like 80 stories. It's called the Salesforce Tower down where. Remember where the old bus station used to be down there at Market, and so that thing is. Everyone said it looks like a giant dildo. That's the.
Yeah, well, here, I mean, San Francisco. I was amazed when I heard from Buddy that they're building these buildings that are 80 stories high, because in San Francisco there was a law you couldn't build a building taller than 20. I think.
20 or 30, yeah.
20 or 30. It had to do with the earthquakes, but it also had to do with the fact they didn't want to they didn't want to obliterate the hills, which are a trademark of San Francisco. And if you put up a lot of tall buildings, and then you take a picture, say, from Treasure Island, you're not going to be able to see those hills.
No. Well, you'll see when you get out here.
Well, maybe I don't have any desire to now.
You got to.
I mean, what? I'm going to go back to that city and I'm going to cry all day long.
You might.
Well, I mean, it's the home of my birth. It's my birthright, that city, and I protect it like I feel I'm protecting this apartment, which is 18 years old. I'm protecting it from them coming in and doing renovations, and lowering the ceilings and pulling out the wood, and because, quite frankly, restoration is important. I believe in updating, but you do it through restoration. You don't do it through renovation. That's what it's all about. Hey, look! I just noticed we're quickly running out of time here.
Time flies when Hedy Lamarr is brought up.
Well, you know, what I can always count on with you, and the reason I like talking with you is because we have a conversation. It makes me talk about stuff. And you always come prepared with something. You know, that you go, hey, who was Hedy Lamarr? And then I go, blah,
I'll
blah.
see something. I immediately think either my father would know something about that or Alex would know something. So I always check mark that for you.
Well, you were correct on that end of it.
Yeah, well, you know everything about movies, so.
Not everything about movies. When you want to do that, you talk to my friend Checky. He knows everything about movies. Hey, it's time to say goodbye. See you in...
Great talking to you, Alex.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the personages, the thing, the Grim Reaper, Larry Bubbles Brown. Thanks, Bubs.
Thank you.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
All right, there we go. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I don't know. I'm not good. I'm not good at this anymore. There we go. There's me. Hi, how are you? What's happening? Huh? How are you? Boy, that was Larry Bubbles Brown, and we'll have him again in about another week. I love Bubs. Just love Bubs. Love talking to him. He gets me talking. Let me see here. Let me open up the phones. I hear it's going to be a Phil-free night tonight because he's got his photo club or something. He wants to. He's gotten into winning these awards every week, so he's going again to win another award at his little thing. At his little thing. Let me do this. No, that's not good either. No, that's too high. That's too low. Let me see here. For those who are listening to the radio version of this, I'm trying to adjust my picture so that I'm a little bit better situated in the picture, because I've been playing around with this because I'm doing an interview tomorrow with my friend Jack Garfine, and because I'm doing the thing with Jack, I need to, here we go, I need to go up. There we go. All right. There we are. Okay, that's better. And then I have to pan it a little bit. Over. Just a little bit. There we go. Okay, now I've got my picture right. Let me see here. No, so I'm doing my interview tomorrow with my friend Jack Garfine, and I really don't know how to do it. I mean, I know how to do it. I know how to do an interview. I've been doing that for years, but I have, I just, let me see here. Let me try moving this a little bit that way. There we go. No, this way. Yeah. Can't get the picture right. So I'm doing this interview tomorrow with my friend Jack Garfine, who's got some interesting things to say. He's 87 years old, and he's lived an amazing life. And so I don't know how to do the interviews, and I was going to sit down and do 2 hours with him. Then I decided, nah, he's an older guy, an hour. And then I decided I'm going to do half hours with him that we can play off on the show. So I'm going to tell him that, we'll stop after a certain amount, after the first half hour, and then we'll start another half hour, and we'll let him rest for a second and whatever, and then we'll get back to it. But that to me is the best way to handle it. So I'm so edgy about doing this interview because I really want it to be good. It's such a fascinating life that he's led, and I want it to be good. So anyway, the phones are open. Nobody's calling. If I don't hear from somebody in 5 minutes, I'm ending the show and going to go to sleep. There are nights I come in here and I go, how am I going to get through an hour and a half? Because that's what happens after I play whatever interview I have. And I shouldn't really gripe about that, but it's a straight hour and a half. It's not like I used to do in radio, where I used to do 5 minutes, and I used to do 4 hours or 3 hours, depending on where I was working. But the fact was that there were maybe at least a third of that time was taken up with commercial and newscasts and things like that. So I didn't have to talk constantly for 2 hours like I do here. So tomorrow I may be even more exhausted because I'm going to be dealing with Jack, and that's going to exhaust me completely. Anyway, here, ladies and gentlemen, the lovely and attractive Jeff Stein is calling. Let me just, I got to do a few things here. You ever have those days, Jeff, as you get into your dotage, where you just don't seem to be able to do anything right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know?
Oh, I have a whole list of things I used to do.
Yeah, that you used to do. I mean, here's the one I hate. I go into the kitchen to get something, all right? And then when I get to the kitchen, I forgot what I was going to the kitchen to get. Is that a common occurrence with you?
Yeah, that happens.
Is that's par for the course, huh? Oh, boy.
But I'm looking for my cell phone tonight.
You're looking for your...
Did you see it?
Well, you know how I get my cell phone. I'll show you here how I managed to get my cell phone. Here's my cell phone, right? And then I have my Apple Watch, okay? And I go to the Apple Watch, and I hold on a second, got to move this thing up. Then I move this whole thing up where I have all these little gadgets, and I push on one button, and I say, where is my phone? And I go, see? Not bad, huh? And if I can't find it, the other day I couldn't find it, and I went in the bedroom, and it was in the bedroom, but it was muffled. It was muffled, and I finally found it under the sheets. I had made the bed over the phone, so you know. So you in other words, you can't find your phone?
No, and I called it on my wife's cell phone.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hear it anywhere in the house. So it must be somewhere, like you say, with something on top of it, hiding.
Oh, okay. You know it's in the house somewhere.
I think so. You think so?
Well,
I knew I was in the car talking to her.
Yeah.
And because I went back to the car, and it doesn't seem to be in the car. But
yeah.
Whatever.
So you don't know where it is then, is what you're saying.
Well, my granddaughter has a system where she can find out exactly where it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She has some software. But it's past 10 o'clock, so she has to be in.
Oh, wait a minute.
She goes to school.
Is it an Apple phone?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and do you have, let me see here. You should be able to, you don't have an iPad, do you?
My wife has.
Oh, well, you can use the iPad. Well, no, then it would only tell you it was in the house.
Yeah.
But at least you'd know it was in the house. It isn't like downtown at a restaurant somewhere or something, or someplace you went, hello, John Perulis. But what
everybody.
What you do is you go to your iPad, and there's a program called Find My Phone.
Yeah. I'm familiar with it. I use it.
You use it.
I use a coat hanger to find my lost things. I know, a coat hanger. Okay, I bend it out and I make it dowsing rods out of it.
I see, and then you go.
I douse for things. I've actually found a few things that way.
Yeah, sure.
No, well, okay, Alex, I'll do a video.
That was a rural agricultural con job you just did on us.
No, I'm not kidding.
I'm going to find water. I've got my magic stick, and we're going to go divining the water. Right?
Okay. Do you want to hear the story? I'll lay it out for you the way it happened.
Okay. Well, we'll try to believe it.
Okay. My wife lost her keys. Okay, and she was very upset. Mm-hmm. So I said, "Honey, let me try and douse for it." So we live in a 2-level home. So I started downstairs and I held my coat hanger dowsing rods very parallel to the floor,
Yeah.
and maybe about six inches apart.
Yeah.
And these two little things were like wiggling around. And
Now,
I didn't get any
around,
reading.
Were they wiggling around?
Downstairs.
Or were you subconsciously making them wiggle around?
No, well, you're trying to hold them really steady, without them, without trying to be an actor and do something with them, right? Sure. So, okay, nothing happened. So I go upstairs, go in one room, nothing. So then I go into the bedroom, and all of a sudden the two tips of the things start touching like that. So then I go into the closet, and they're like really going crazy, okay? So I look down, and I don't see anything. There's just her shoes, right? So I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm getting a really strong reading here. There's got to be something. So I went down and I started pushing the shoes aside.
Wait a minute,
because I thought,
don't stop right there for a second.
Yeah.
Is anybody believing this so far?
No.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, well, I'm just really telling you the truth. Superman never lies.
Yeah.
So then I'm rattling these shoes aside, and I start hearing something. So I look inside. One of the shoes was her keys. They had fallen and slipped down, and I credit that with my dowsing rod. Now, what's my success ratio? I'd say about 30%. So that means 70% I don't find anything, but 30%. It rings true. You tell me.
Isn't 30% about the chance you'd have of finding it if you were looking for it without the dowsing rod?
The dowsing rod sped the whole process up. It really did. Because, where do you look? At least it makes hundreds of places to look.
Makes for a good story.
Well, I'll tell you, you're not going to get brain cancer from a cell phone with your app when you use dowsing rods. There's no electronic, there's no microwave radiation.
I've been using cell phones practically. You know me, Tom. I was always into technology. I was one of the first people you probably ever knew that had a cell phone. I've been using cell phones longer than any all y'all out there. In fact, I did when we still had them in cars with a wire attached to the dashboard. Okay? Right? I don't know that I have a tumor yet. So
well, I use them a lot. I try to use a hands-free device when I don't like to keep the phone near my head.
Well, I use headsets because I can't. Even when I'm using it at home, because I don't like, they all get warm, right? I don't want to have that near my head. It's just uncomfortable. Yeah. But maybe I do have a brain tumor. Maybe that's what's wrong with me. Maybe that's why I'm forgetting stuff. I'm at that age, where you just sit around going, what is it that's going to get me? So it could be the brain tumor from a cell phone, But.
Well, at any rate, dowsing works. There's all these weird, farmers from North Dakota who've been using dowsing, and they find water. So there's got to be something to it.
It was always considered a rural con job. Am I right? Tom's agreeing with me, right?
Yeah, it's a con job.
Yeah, yeah. The guy would come over and he'd say, "I'm going to find water for you," and he has a little forked stick, right? And he goes, "Oh, there's water down there." And if you dig far enough, I suppose anywhere you're going to find water.
Yeah, but keys are another thing.
The keys are another thing. No, I just look when I as I said the other night, anytime I find that I've lost my keys, I look for them in the refrigerator. And the reason I look for them in the refrigerator is there was this ad on TV once for Alzheimer's. And his woman says, "I don't know where I left my keys, dear." And he goes looking around, he opens the refrigerator, and the keys are in the refrigerator. And he says, "I think you need to go to see a doctor." And they find out she has Alzheimer's. And so I figure if I ever leave my keys in the refrigerator, hey, I'm going to be talking to the walls next. Age is a terrible thing to waste. That's why I make every joke I can about my age. But it is starting to bother me, you know, that there are certain things that I go, duh, you know, I have things here I do on a regular basis, and I forget how to do them. Yes, Tom.
So, yeah, you had a memory issue during the Larry Bubbles Brown interview. It was Harvey Korman.
Yes.
Who was Headley Lamar.
Right.
Headley Lamar.
Some kind of territorial governor or something.
Yes, yes. Isn't that a fascinating story about Hedy Lamar?
Yeah.
She was a meth genius, right?
I'm surprised that Larry hadn't heard about it before, because that was a big story. You were on CNET when that story broke.
Well, no, I've known that story for years and years before CNET. It was a commonly known story among people who knew old movies and movie stars and so on, and what she had done during the war. In fact, what's amazing about it is that what she and George Antheil, and he should get credit too, invented in this frequency hopping thing, was the basis for why your cell phone works. Now, don't ask me what part of your cell phone does that, but it is important to the operation of a cell phone. You know.
Well, it's the communication between the phone and the towers.
Yeah.
So as you move from one cell to a cell, you've got to establish another connection.
Yes, I would say you're probably right. That's the part of her invention. But if she had kept the patent on that, she would have been a multi-billionaire. I mean, because she'd get money on every cell phone that was sold. Of course, she died before the cell phones became big, but there were a lot of other things that used her scheme. Radar, as an example. So, you know, and the government took her invention, held on to it, didn't do anything with it until 1952, and that was about the time her patent expired. And she didn't renew the patent.
You can't really renew those things.
Well, no, then you could every, was it 13 years in the old days? Every 13 years up to 26 years.
And then you had to have the money.
And I don't think she even renewed it for the second 13. That was the problem. And then about 1980, 82, or 85, she tried to sue to get the patent back, but she couldn't, you know.
Wow.
Long past. Now patents are, I think, extended to the life of the inventor. Am I right about that, Jeff?
No, 17 years.
No, I don't. I think that's a thing of the past now. I think you can copyright an invention, and it stays copywritten for the length of the life of the inventor plus a certain amount of years, like 50 years. So, anybody got a computer? Look it up. Find it out. Call me up if you know the answer on that.
I'll do it right now.
You know, how long is a copyright? Just type in how long.
A copyright or a patent?
A patent, excuse me.
Patent.
Copyrights, you don't even have to really you don't even have to send away and get a copyright. You just say on your work, copyright, blah, 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 the year, and that will hold it forever. But by the way, it's a feel-free night.
Oh, okay. 17 was the right one. It says U.S. patents with a filing date before June 8th, 1995 provide protection for up to 17 years, counting from the date of grant, the date given with reference numeral 45, or 20 years from the filing date, whichever expires later. However, the patent holder is required to pay maintenance fees to keep his patent valid.
Okay, now what happens after the patent runs out? He can't renew it?
It's now public domain.
In other words, that's what happens to drugs then after 17 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem with drugs is that it often takes 5 years, 6 years, 7 years for what we call approval, that it's an accepted, not just as a patent, but accepted that the drug is useful.
By the way, Jeff, you were absolutely right. You know why I was wrong? I was thinking of copyrights.
Yeah.
Copyrights were like...
that's different.
Look and see how long a length of a copyright is. I think you'll find it's for the life of the author or the creator. But that's what I was thinking of. And you are an inventor, so you should know about patents.
I have probably, I don't know, 45 patents or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Well,
I never made any money on them. That's besides the point.
Oh, here you go. Copyright. All works published in the United States before 1923 are in the public domain.
Right.
Works published after 1922, but before 1978, are protected for 95 years from the date of publication. If the work was created but not published before 78, the copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years.
Yeah, okay, that was what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything before what? 1923, did you say?
Yeah, 23. You know, it's funny.
So that means
because everybody's
well, I'm going to find every piece. I'm going to find every piece of music I can find to play on the show that's prior to 1923, and I've got some, by the way. Anyway, what were you saying?
Oh, Harold Lloyd videos are out now, and they are all over Facebook. You know, incredible videos like Safety Last.
Yeah, right.
You know, where he's hanging from the clock.
Yeah.
You know, amazing stunts for those days. And I think that's all in the public domain because he made those in 1920.
By the way, I've seen how the clock was done.
Yeah, I mean, it's a trick, but
he wasn't hanging from a building. That clock was built on top of a roof, and then they shot at an angle that looked like he was, you know, just suspended in midair. But it was the set was like if you had the roof here, they built it up here. I mean, he could have fallen a little bit, but there were mattresses and stuff down there. And then they shot at an angle like this so that all you see is all the traffic below and everything.
And you know something else? I didn't realize that on his right hand, he blew off 3 fingers, including his thumb.
And he had to do that stunt with I don't know what hand he's using in that, but
well, he had a glove.
Yeah.
You know, that made him look like he had. But if you look at a close-up of the video, his thumb doesn't move. He's holding on to the rope or the clock. And
does everybody know what we're talking about? Because it's kind of an iconic scene that they always show of a guy hanging from a clock. Okay. He was a guy. He did these stunts, but they weren't. It wasn't that they were dangerous, really, because they were all rigged. But he did them nonetheless. You know, people had to believe that Harold Lloyd was hanging from a clock that was on a building that was 20 stories high.
I was just reading where the spectators that were below that were filmed, Chaplin and Buster Keaton were extras in that crowd watching.
Oh, really?
You know. Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Well, it's not amazing. I think they all knew each other. Or they had to. Lloyd was, I think, Fatty Arbuckle, when he was alive, was number 2 to Chaplin.
Wow!
And then when he had that whole thing with the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco, and you know, he got drummed out of the business for something he never did. Okay, I think Keaton moved to number 2 and Lloyd was number 3. I may be wrong, but I think that was how it went. And oddly enough, Keaton was Arbuckle's protege.
Ah.
Yeah.
Ah.
So nobody was more saddened by it than Keaton.
Well, I'll tell you, I really get a bang looking at those videos now. I mean, you know, they're primitive by our standards today, but
there's nothing primitive
you look
about
at
them.
The athleticism; it's just amazing.
They're a perfect example of funny is funny, and my suggestion to anybody who wants to watch any of these films is don't watch them alone. If you can, watch them in a theater. Watch them in a theater with an audience, because I watched something. The one that he did, Steamboat Bill Jr. I had seen that any number of times, you know, with the building coming down on top of him and him just standing there and where the door was. Somehow he doesn't get hit by the building. That was done by having the front of that building built with a hinge. And they knew exactly where it was going to fall, unless that hinge broke, and then it would have killed Keaton. But anyway, I watched that film, God, I don't know how many times, and I enjoyed it. It's funny, whatever. Then I saw it at the San Francisco Silent Film Festival with an audience and an orchestra, and all of a sudden, there were laughs in that movie I didn't know were there, but with an audience experience the whole thing. There's a scene where he's taking hats on and putting them on, taking another one off, putting another one on, another one on. Finally puts on one that's the Keaton hat, and he goes, nah, I don't want that either, and he throws that away. And when that happens, the whole audience broke out in just giant laughter and applauding. These films were made to be seen by an audience, not to be seen by you sitting and watching a television set.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And they, if you know, I went and saw, I'll tell you, the greatest film experience I ever had, and I think Tom knows about this, was I went to the Paramount Theater in San Francisco. My friend Shecky and I, we flew out especially for this, and while I was out here for this occasion, I married my wife. We just decided, let's go up to Reno, let's go up to Tahoe and get married. So, but the reason we came to California was to go to the Paramount Theater, which they were having a showing of the full-length Napoleon, which is a French picture. Napoleon happens to be 5.5 hours. I believe that's the number I seem to remember, 5.5 hours. And they did it with a complete symphony orchestra led by Carl Davis, who is the greatest writer of silent film scores alive. He's just wonderful. And he wrote an original score for the entire film. And we sat there, and they did it in 3 parts. First part, then a second part. I think it was 4.5 hours. And then finally a third part.
They had 2 intermissions.
No, they had 3. They had 2 intermissions, and then they had a dinner intermission. And we all went out to dinner, and everything, came back and watched the rest of the film. And at the end of that film, the screen opens up, and it's like what they did with Cinerama years earlier. It's 3 different projectors projecting different panorama. And also just separate things too at the same time, and it just, I don't know, it took my breath away. I mean, it was primitive, but it just absolutely took my breath away. And what amazed me is in watching the, I don't know, I'm going to say, let's say 5 hours of this movie. God, I think it was 5.5. But anyway, there wasn't one boring minute in the whole picture. Okay, it was a masterpiece. But if I sat at home trying to gnaw on this thing, I don't think, I've tried to do it and I couldn't. But sitting in a theater with a whole bunch of other people, and nobody's going, I wonder when dinner is, I'm getting hungry. No, there was none of that. Everybody was just enthralled by what they were watching.
Well, I think you've just identified the mystique of live theater too. I mean, my wife and I love to attend live theater. I mean, we go up to Ashland, you know, to catch plays every year. And I think that's unparalleled. I think cinema, television is fine. You know, it has its place. But I don't know, it's like the immediacy, the electricity, the fact that you're actually looking at live people do their thing, that, you know. And well, Alex, you know this. I mean, I saw you at the comedy clubs, you know, and, you know, there's nothing like seeing a live comedic performance as opposed to seeing it on TV.
Oh, I don't know. If it's a bad comedic performance, you'd wish you weren't there.
Right.
You know, I've had that happen too.
Yeah.
Apparently, you're not aware of a comedian named Perry Kurtz, but well, that's another story altogether.
Kurtz, I don't know.
But that Paramount Theater is a beautiful theater too.
Yes.
I wish I had been able to go. I wasn't able to, but I would really love to see something like that.
Well, it was the only time that it was going to happen in the United States. And it was the only time that Carl Davis's full score was going to be heard in the United States. The reason is that a guy by the name of Francis Ford Coppola, years earlier, had grabbed Napoleon and gotten the rights to show it in the United States. And he had his father, Carmine, create a score, which is just horrible, just terrible. And when they wanted to do it here, Kevin Brownlow wanted to do it here. He's an art historian and restoration guy. He wanted to bring it back to the United States with the Carl Davis score. Carl Davis had scored it for showings in Europe. And for years, he fought Coppola to get it done. And finally, Coppola relented and allowed him to do one performance of it in Oakland, and that was it. And then get the fuck out of the country with your score. And they can still show it in Europe. And I even have a copy of it with Carl Davis's score. That's a European disc, but Coppola, you know, like, was just greedy about that film. And I just think that all you have to do is hear Davis's score is just magnificent. It's just incredible. And when finally at the end, it's the big battle, the big battle scene, the music, the live music. I mean, you got to realize when people went into movie theaters in the silent days, you think, oh, well, there was a guy there in the front and he was playing a piano. Well, and that's not really true. That was true in Montana, where they had bicycled the Prince to the end of the line, right? Or an organ, because it sounded kind of like an orchestra. But if you went to a silent film in New York, at one of the big theaters, you had a full symphony-sized orchestra playing the score.
Yeah, cool.
And a lot of musicians got employed, by the way. It was a good thing. And then when sound came along, part of the reason why sound was invented, people get the idea that sound was invented because, oh, well, it would be wonderful to hear people talk. No, that's not the reason sound was invented. The reason sound was invented was because they wanted to have the same music in bumfuck Montana that they had in New York City. So they did the first, what you call talkie, wasn't really a talkie at all. The first Warner Brothers sound picture was Don Juan with John Barrymore, and it was music and sound effects. But it was all on film. Or not on film, it was on a disc. And that was their idea of why they wanted to invent it. And then all of a sudden, when they did The Jazz Singer, it was a silent movie until he sang the songs, okay? And then all of a sudden, you've got Al Jolson singing the songs. And then it went back to being a silent film again. But at one point in the picture, he ad-libbed before he started singing, "Hey, folks, you ain't heard nothing yet," which was his catchphrase. And they said, "Wow, we could use this to have people talk." I swear to you, they never thought of using sound for people to talk.
Well, how did they sync it up? I mean, they had pilot tone.
No, well, they had it. It was the version of sound. I mean, the version of sound that they used, Warner Brothers, was a very klutzy kind of. It went out pretty fast. Vitaphone was a thing of the past, and they just called their pictures Vitaphone on any sound picture they did. But what it was a disc, and it was right next to the projector. And by then you had amplification, thanks to what's his name who invented the vacuum tube?
Marconi?
DeForest, Lee DeForest. And they could then, amplify to an entire theater. And they had this disc, and the disc was in synchronization with the projector. In other words, if the projector slowed down a little bit, so did the disc. I mean, it was in sync with the disc. They went through a lot of discs, though, I'll have to say that. Meanwhile, a few years earlier, there's a picture, and if you get it, it's one of the greatest films I've ever seen, done by Murnau, who did Nosferatu, and he did a picture called Sunrise in the United States. And the music is all on film, on the film itself. The format that we started using, where we had the optical track going down the side of the film,
Right.
And if you find a copy of Sunrise today, that is the original musical track for the film. And the idea was music. The idea wasn't, hey, these people can talk. Nobody, that was not their intention. And then all of a sudden, at one point, Jolson ad-libs another thing to his mother about, we're going to move uptown and we're going to be there with the good, you know. And all of a sudden, everybody went crazy. The talkies are here. Well, they only talked for about a minute and a half in the whole film. But the talkies were here.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, once sound came in, you can't imagine that they didn't invent it for people to talk, but film was considered the art of pantomime.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was pantomime and good music. All right? That's what you went to the theater for. They didn't think that, you know, gee, these people could talk. But there was a problem when they started talking. What do you think the problem was? Anybody want to guess? Welcome to Alex Bennett's movie lecture. Yes.
Would it be related to the plot of Singing in the Rain?
No, but a lot of that was true. But
I would think the big problem that they had was syncing.
Well,
syncing the sound and the video together.
Yeah. Now I forgot what I was going to tell you was the biggest problem.
Oh.
Of sound. Oh, yeah, the biggest sound problem when they went to sound was, and a little bit of is shown in Singing in the Rain, but they don't make a big deal out of it. The cameras were so loud. They had to put them in booths and pad them. A few years later, somebody created what they called a self-blimped camera.
Yeah.
And it had padding in it to prevent you from hearing the problems with the audio. Hold on a second. There we go. There. Just got him back. Okay. For Tom, who maybe didn't get that, they had self-blimped cameras a few years later, but at that point they had to be in a booth.
Yeah.
So you had no movement with the camera. So every scene was like very static. So where movies up to the end of the silence had suddenly become very, very sophisticated when it came to movement, especially the Germans were great at having a moving camera. They would put cameras on ropes swinging back and forth to get certain effects. And so you really had movement in movies. That's why they called them movies. But now they were kind of stillies because everybody had to sit still. And then on top of that, and that was Singing in the Rain had the same problem. Where to put the microphone? These microphones weren't as sensitive as the microphones are today, where you have a boom mic and it can hear people, you know, wherever it's aimed. So they were having to put it in telephones or behind books or whatever, and people were always kind of talking into them. So the sound created a whole bunch of artistic problems. But as a few years went on, the technology came into play. And, you know, they got self-blimped cameras and things like that. So cameras then were able to move. Only did they then come out with 3-color Technicolor. And I don't know if you ever saw the 3-color Technicolor cameras because they had to run 3 reels of film at the same time. But they were fucking huge.
Yeah, wow.
You know, so, I mean, every technology creates a new problem. And now, of course, I'm doing videos with my little GoPro that does better quality than they could ever get back in those days of movie making.
I know, it's weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite silent era films was actually shot right after World War I. There was a famous French cinematographer with a Pathé camera, and he flew in a plane over all the devastation of France, you know, that was bombed out.
Oh, there's a lot of that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Amazing shots, you know, that you just you begin to get a scope of how vast the battlefields were in France and Belgium. And, you know, this guy, that's how he made his fame. He, you know, shot all this aerial footage and, you know, just kind of open your eyes up to, you know, that aspect of the war.
Well, that's the grimmest war we ever had, World War II.
Yeah,
that was. By the way, we'd love to get more people calling. Renee, where are you? Come to the rescue. Phil isn't here. You can get a word in edgewise. Come on.
Yeah, I was joking around with Renee. I don't know what she left.
Oh, really?
I don't know what happened to her. Yeah.
I guess she's gotten bored or something. You know, or she's communing with paradise. And Ray's out directing a play, so that's why we don't have him for a couple of weeks. You know.
Oh yeah, his play. Yeah. Well, I've kind of been doing media stuff, editing film. I just finished a live shoot, and hey, Alex, I bought a new toy.
What?
A hardware encoder. You know, a Live View hardware encoder. The best one, the Live View LU 600, costs 25 grand. You know, but this one they make an entry level one that's $3 under $2.
Under $2. Well, why did you get a hardware encoder?
You know, because I get too many blips and problems with software encoders like OBS or Wirecast.
I never have any problem with those.
Well, I'm shooting stuff that lasts all day. You know, 8-10 hours, and I think gear gets hot, and you know, I just you know, have to go back to hardware. I use a hardware switcher. You know, I have Wirecast that can do multicam switching.
People don't know what we're talking about, so we're probably boring the shit out of them. But OBS is what I use here to switch this show.
Oh, OBS is fantastic. Yeah. It's a great piece of work, and it's free.
Absolutely free, and I look and see what these other companies say they can do, you know, and they don't come close to OBS.
Yeah, I could agree with you. And then, you know, you look at who's the biggest user of OBS. It's Twitch. It's gamers, and they're on for hours. You know, if you've watched their shows,
I'll tell you something. This is a whole world that most of our audience doesn't know about. Tom probably doesn't know about it. I'm sure Jeff doesn't. And that is these people who are online playing games,
video games.
Yeah. Now, and I got the last Tomb Raider, for instance, as an example, and so I wanted to know how I get around certain things. So this is one guy that does these things. He had like 30 hours of Tomb Raider up there of him going through the entire game, and here's how we get past this, and if you jump over that, you get to this. You know, it wasn't that I was cheating exactly, but I didn't have to spend hours just trying to figure a few things out, because you still got to do it. You still got to move your fingers around. And I really loved it. I just, you know, I sat there. Sometimes I wouldn't even play the game. I would just sit there watching him play it. And there's a whole audience for this. And they have conventions where people go and watch these people play these games.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, they have competitions, you know, and a big one is sports videos, like virtual basketball games, virtual football games, virtual baseball games, you know, and so they compete against each other, and, you know, have turned it into you know, kind of an online sport thing, you know, so they have a lot of people looking at that.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it has quite a fan base, some of these people. This one guy, did the Tomb Raider stuff. Hell, he had like a total of 1 million viewers or something. You know, well, because he also had another aspect to what he was doing, is he would play the game and then he would say things of excitement and so on, that like he was really getting into the game, you know. And watch out! Oh, I gotta watch out for that ball. Oh, that was a good one, you know. They become great performers too, you know. So it's a whole subset of the internet that a lot of these people don't know what we're talking about. And when you're talking about things like OBS and Wirecast, all these things really sell themselves more as a thing for gamers to use, in order to show people how they play these particular games. Of course, this guy was cheating a little bit. Every now and then when he really fucked up, he edited. But, you know, I mean, or couldn't figure it out, he would, like, you know, cut, and then all of a sudden he's jumped to something else, and I missed out on a little bit of it, and then I couldn't figure out how to get past a certain point. But that's a big business now.
Yeah,
You know. Nobody else is going to call tonight? God, where's Kevin?
I don't know.
Where's Kevin tonight?
I wish I had the time to go to NAB. It starts on the 9th and goes through the weekend in Las Vegas.
National Association of
Broadcasters. Yeah.
Yes. And they hold a convention every year, and you're going for the technical part of it, right? Yeah.
Well, I can't. I just had too many commitments here, but I'd love to go.
Yeah,
I just can't squeak it away.
I used to go to what's the one they have earlier in the year around New Year, the Consumer Electronics Show, CES.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, right. And then there's streaming media. There's streaming media is in New York now, in Manhattan.
I have a video here of me doing one of my things that I did for Log On TV at the CES in, what year would this have to be? Oh boy.
90.
Huh?
Maybe the late 90s.
Is it late 90s? Maybe 95. This one I'd have to go. I should go out and look at Miami. It will tell me what year it was. I have like one where I'm talking about this new thing. This is the rage, folks. It's called DVDs. No longer things on tape. They're on a disc this size. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? And look at the picture. And I'm going, wow. Gee, I've been there, done that. And when I did all these things for Log On, it was like I'm in front of a TV set and I'm using a dial-up modem practically to get online, things like that. But it was the beginning of the wonderful world, and now we're finding out that it is a real problem. In fact, we've got Zuckerberg, the guy who owns a hospital, who is going to be speaking in front of a congressional committee when they say the 14th, something like that. I can't remember now. But
yeah, I just saw the headline. I lost it.
Their stock is supposedly dumped just precipitously.
Yeah.
They've lost like $28 billion in what do you call it? The capital or whatever it's called.
Stock evaluation.
Yeah. I mean,
it's the least trusted social network now. Among users.
My question is whether that is truly deserved. Can any of them be trusted? Or did Facebook just get used by somebody who got found out? I mean, this company, what was it? What's the name of it? The one in England that was doing the research for Trump.
Analytica.
Yeah.
Cambridge
Analytica. Cambridge Analytica. If they had decided to use YouTube or to use Twitter, then those companies would be in the hot seat. So I don't know that because they targeted Facebook, they targeted a vulnerability in Facebook that Facebook, quite frankly, probably didn't think was a vulnerability. And also these companies, these newer companies, always wind up at a point, and I mentioned this the other night, where they run into real trouble because they don't understand how big they've gotten.
Yeah.
And when they don't understand how big they've gotten, they tend to think, oh, well, they don't look at these holes or how it can be breached or how it can be used or how it can, whatever. I think Facebook was probably the one to use because they collect the most information because you type in, where you're from and how you make a living and who your girlfriend is and, you've got friends, and so those friends
they
have
tap
friends.
into your friends.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, Twitter, not so much. Twitter isn't as verbose in information. And YouTube, quite frankly, I don't think YouTube has much information on me. They just have all these shows, Right. But they don't have that much more information on me. So come on over, folks, and subscribe to my channel because it's safe. It's like doing the internet with a condom. Okay?
Hey, that's the girl that shot up the YouTube headquarters and killed herself yesterday, I think.
Well,
she was pissed off at YouTube because they were downgrading her videos or censoring them or something.
Apparently something. I don't know if you saw her videos, but she was kind of a whack job. You know?
No, I didn't see her videos.
So she probably was very famous. I mean, I don't know whether people. She probably got a lot of viewers. I go look to see if she had any, but they've probably taken her account down by now.
Yeah, they probably washed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But here's the thing. CNN is in a great deal of trouble with social media and with the public. And this is during the whole Me Too thing going on, right? They say yesterday in the news that it was a woman shooter. And how often do we have a woman shooter? And then they said there's a rumor it was a love triangle thing, and she was out to get her boyfriend. They figure that the only way, okay, are we losing you, Jeff? Where's Jeff?
No. I'm just moving around.
It said they said it was a lover's quarrel or whatever, and she went in there. That's what the rumor was.
Huh.
Well, what drove everybody nuts was it had nothing to do with it. And they could only surmise that the real reason that any woman would go in and shoot up a place is because her boyfriend was in there. Yeah. And that was a sexist idea of why a woman would suddenly be a shooter.
I don't think CNN was the only one that...
I think I heard MSNBC do it too.
Yeah, that was one of the things that they were looking into as a possibility. It was a domestic quarrel or something like that.
Yeah.
But then, as more information came out, it's just like anything else. When you have an event like that, lots of misinformation gets out, and there are people that intentionally put out misinformation. Like there was an attempt to make it look like she was a Muslim. I mean, that's usually the first thing they try to do is they say, oh, it was a Muslim. She had a headscarf, you know?
Yeah. Yes, Jeff.
I'm always amazed that nobody on TV will ever say these words. I don't know.
Well, here's in a situation like what happened yesterday, here's the part that gets me. They go hour after hour after hour on this story with only maybe 3 pieces of information.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they just, the 3 pieces of information they keep repeating over and over again, and they keep trying new ways of saying the 3 pieces of information. And we know it was a woman. We know 5 people were shot, and she used a pistol. Beyond that, they have no more information, but they're trying to pretend like they do. And they don't want to say, look, we're going to go to other news and we'll come back when this story develops, when the story has changed.
Yeah. But that's not the way cable TV news works.
Well, that's right. It's totally different than when newspapers used to come out, because the newspaper would only come out typically once a day, unless it was incredibly important.
Yeah.
Change, and people knew something. But I was listening about that with a woman and the people who were shot and all of that, and it just kept going on and on and on. And I turned it off and went to another station, and then I came back later. Like you say, Alex, the same story was going over and over and over,
yes,
with no other information.
Right.
I turned off cable TV news in 2009, and except for occasions where I've been somewhere and somebody else is watching, I have not watched. I don't watch any more cable TV news.
After the election,
it's a big waste.
After the election, for about 3/4 of a year, we didn't watch any TV news. We just completely stopped watching it. And I didn't feel we were missing anything. As a matter of fact, the information I was getting every night from you guys. You know, or my watch. My watch was coming up with headlines and so on. You know, but I didn't have to, and I'm getting bored with it again, because you tune in any of these shows, and I don't care how good or bad they are. It goes something like this. Opening story, blah, blah, blah. Here's the story. Let's go to our field reporter. She's got more of the story. Blah, 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 blah. Now we're back in the studio, and now we have our panel here, and now we go to three people who are going to, or anywhere from 1 to 3 people who are going to take that story and dissect it. And then we get to another story. They boot them out the door. They go to another reporter to report the bit. You come back to the studio. There are now another 1 to 3 people there who are going to discuss it. This goes on endlessly, and nothing ever gets accomplished.
Jon Stewart, when on the Daily Show a number of years ago, did a wonderful takeoff on that. You know, where they were saying, "Oh, we're going to leave. We have to leave it there," and go off. You know. And they're in the middle of this big argument. And then finally Stewart says, "No, don't leave it there." It was just, you know,
right.
It's just very, very frustrating that the way this, it's just these people just yelling at each other.
Yeah.
And you don't learn anything.
Right.
You know?
Yes, John?
Yeah, well, I want to bring it back to Clayton Douglas. I mean, that's Clayton Douglas film and interview that you did, Alex.
Yeah.
This is where the value of shows like this come in, you know, where we're regular people and we're doing the in-depth thing about these events. And what you did, bringing Clayton Douglas on the show to kind of flush out the behind the scenes, the in-depth thing about why people do extreme acts. I mean, this is the venue, this Gabnet and YouTube, where we could present these kind of things. This is our forum, you know, This is our chance to do it. I think that was one of the best damn internet shows I've ever seen, was that Clayton Douglas show that you ran.
Well, you know, I mean, what it is that I have the same 3 people here discussing a subject. The only thing is, you guys don't know shit. And you're all willing to admit it, okay?
That's right.
So we sit here trying to dissect the news from a more rational standpoint, except when Phil's here. From a more rational standpoint, and a more humane standpoint. I mean, it's what America thinks, I feel, on this program. It's America, and I think the news is, you know, Trump loves to go after the news. And I don't say that he doesn't have a case, actually. I
agree.
I mean, in that, I don't call it fake news. I don't think that's what it is at all. I think it's ginned up news. I think it's news meant to sell beer and product, you know, but it's not news to inform people, and that's the problem. See? Yes, Tom?
I think it's politicized news, and it's very shallow, and basically it's very centered on the U.S. It very lacks an international perspective. You basically have someone from the Democratic Party yelling against somebody against the Republican Party, and that happens on all these cable networks, whether it be MSNBC, CNN, Fox. They all basically are running the same formula, but each one has their own particular, you know, political bias when they do it. But it's all very shallow. I mean, this, to me, the nice thing about this panel is, yes, a lot of times we're talking about things we don't know of, but also this is where we can also talk from our own personal experience. So you can debate or argue my political opinions, but you can't debate my personal experience. You know, that's the one thing that I can bring, everyone can bring, is personal experience that we can all begin to understand and gain empathy through.
Well, that personal experience is what, in many respects, defines us. And we bring, and people do bring that to this program. Except tonight, there are just 3 of you. But sometimes they're, you know, it's a very lively conversation. I feel when it gets over 9, it gets unwieldy, but, you know, it's harder for me to keep track of. This is oddly enough, even though I have to keep the ball rolling, this is an easier show for me to do than when I got 8 people and I've got to like, oh, Phil, you got your hand up.
Yeah,
so
right.
You got your hand up, you know.
Yeah, hey, this from Reuters. This came in from one of my streaming media blogs. Reuters Institute reports that nearly 60% of 18 to 34-year-olds use online resources as their main source of news. And in an era of fake news, live content seems to be the only dependable medium left. That's from Reuters.
Live content?
Yeah.
I don't know that to begin with, I don't look upon the internet as being dependable. I think it is a festering, I used this term once to describe television, actually, a festering pocket of misinformation. It is. Because I don't believe anything I read on the internet just because nobody's getting vetted.
This is about live broadcasts like this. This is a live broadcast.
Yeah, but you know, let's face it, Phil isn't here tonight, but I can talk about him. You know, he'd talk about me if I wasn't here. Phil says things that are wrong. Okay? Somebody who wants to justify their opinion is going to then tell a friend the next day, well, I was watching a live show on the internet last night, and one of the people said, blah, blah, blah. Did you know that to be true? You know, in other words, all of a sudden, because it's on what you see, they can't tell the difference, believe it or not. They can't tell the difference between television and this show, because this show looks like a television show, or the kind of television show. And because it's coming, maybe they're watching it on a big screen somewhere instead of just on their little computer. Or maybe they watch everything on their computer, including television. But it all gets to be in this big mishmash and this big homogenized situation in which all of this becomes, you can't tell the real from the fake, okay? And so, you know, there were people, they said, what do you think? They said to some people, what do you think is the best news show on television? He said, The Daily Show. Well, The Daily Show was not a news show, you know, but they perceived it as one.
You know, the difference between the news and the people that pump out information and us is that we don't have an agenda. You know, we're just 4 guys having a conversation, and we're not trying to promote any particular product
I have an agenda.
Philosophy.
I have an agenda.
What's your agenda?
It's the overthrow of the American political system. I want to overthrow America. I don't know what I want to replace it with, but neither does Trump. So, you know, it doesn't matter.
Oh, Alex.
Hey, Tim is called, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get to your conspiracy in a moment, but first, go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, you very seldom make it to the third party.
What?
You know, you've been to a lot of... we were talking about third-party politics, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just remember, the party told you to reject all evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final and most essential command.
Was it?
What's that a quote from?
I have no idea.
1984?
1984, yeah.
No.
Yeah, I thought so, yeah, all right.
And with Sinclair taking over the local stations, where people pretty much live with these anchors, that's probably the most trusted source for a lot of people. That's much scarier than Fox News.
They consider local news to be the most trusted source. I don't know why, because I never watch it. I don't want to watch I don't want to see a story about a house burning down or a dog up a cat up a tree or something warm and fuzzy. But that newscast, those local newscasts, are the most watched news on television. But television is getting to be less of a medium for news, period. I mean, most people are saying that they're actually using the internet to find stuff. You know, so what are you going to say?
Well, that's why the lady shot up YouTube, because she thought they were censoring her too much.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, here's where she was really wrong was, YouTube is for my money, the best of all these outfits. Okay. I don't have the greatest love in the world for Google, but I will have to say that having done business with Facebook, I'm no longer using Facebook, and Twitter completely baffles me because I like the art of conversation. And I find that YouTube really runs a great business, you know. And
but they started filtering much more, and they took people's means of income away. And they're making policy decisions, social decisions that affected a lot of people's income that had established good YouTube channels.
Well,
so they've become their own government.
First of all, fuck those people, because YouTube never created YouTube as a method of these people earning a living. The fact that they found a way to do it, okay,
right,
is
their
their fault. But I got news for you. Anytime you rely on somebody else to be the basis for your income, then you're at their beck and call. Okay, and
that's why in a capitalist society you need regulations and you need
but
rules.
you don't need regulation. See, in this particular case, I don't think you need regulations. What you need is somebody to say, well, I got a better idea than YouTube. I'm going to come up with a better way of doing it.
Then why is Zuckerberg coming in to talk to a committee? You heard what the news
he's
from,
trying to
from
save his
Facebook
he's trying to save his fucking business because it's tanking.
Now they said there was billions of records accessed, not just the 50 million. Right?
No.
Wow.
Cambridge said, Analytica said they only did, I think, 20 million. And Zuckerberg and Facebook said it was more like 78 million. So actually they were saying it was more than Cambridge Analytica said it was.
Right.
It was
it's almost as if Enron and Torch.
You see, I mean, I don't to begin with, how am I going to be mad at Facebook? It was started by a bunch of kids, right? And Zuckerberg was just a kid. And, you know, I'm expecting them to suddenly, in 15 years, become, business-wise, become terribly mature? Come on, that's ridiculous.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I look at YouTube as a library. And when you have libraries, once you start burning books, like in Fahrenheit 451, you know, the power elite maintain their control by controlling the flow of knowledge. And that's been that way for centuries.
YouTube has every right to say, hey, I don't want you on my system. You know, because they did not start it as some kind of a government a mandate that people run videos on the internet, and here are the reasons you do it, you know?
Right, but it's a monopoly. Once it becomes a monopoly, it has obligations.
But it's not a monopoly.
No.
I can name 5 other streaming services that do video. You know, I have 2 of them. I have 2 of them right now. I use I use 3 of them actually. I use Facebook. I use YouTube. I use live stream, and I use iTunes. Okay.
I'm just thinking of my kids' generation. They're just pretty much YouTube everything.
Well, that's because YouTube has captured their imagination, and because there's a richer, fuller playing field there. But the point I'm making is, you don't think Facebook started Facebook Live because they wanted to compete against YouTube, and they actually have more people on Facebook than YouTube has? Do you know my audience has gone down watching videos because I left Facebook? But I left it for a good reason, because I don't think they had a good service there. It was always going down and having problems, and I was afraid I was going to sneeze wrong, and they were going to be upset by that. You know, I find that YouTube is pretty lenient, believe it or not. You know, I mean, when I used to, if I played a song here on the show, I would suddenly, after while the song was playing, my feed would dump. Would go down. It was because I played something that I didn't have the rights to play. If I do the same thing on YouTube, after it's all over, they say, well, you played something you shouldn't have played, and we're going to have to run a commercial before you can't use it to make money, and we're going to generate some income for the people whose copyright you used. All right? But they don't suddenly become dogmatic and just cut me off. And I got one once where they said, well, you know, you can't be shown in the following countries because you played this song, and it was every country but Zaire, I think. So, you know, I immediately cut the song out of the show and resubmitted it. But, you know.
Yeah, they're pretty sophisticated now.
No, but they are much more reasonable and try and come out with an answer that doesn't mean you can't do what you do. It's just, they say, hey, you played a song that's copywritten. You cannot monetize this show. However, we can run a commercial beforehand if we choose to for the advertiser, for the music publisher or whatever, to gain some revenue from.
I like what you're saying, Alex.
I'm never going to make money out of this anyway. I don't care. Go ahead.
Don't be careful. Just be careful you're not being a sycophant. Because we're on YouTube.
No, I'm not. No. You know something? The last thing I wanted to do was YouTube. There's this guy we have who's a constant listener to this program, Forbin Colossus. You've seen him on the chat line.
Yes, I've seen him.
Yeah. Forbin kept writing me, you should leave Facebook. You should go to YouTube. Blah, 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 blah. And finally, I started having so many problems with Facebook, I decided to do YouTube for a week. And even though the numbers of people that I got as a result of it, because I didn't have as many subscribers, whereas on Facebook I got like maybe 1,500, 2,000 subscribers,
right.
Or people following me who all get a message when I'm on the air. I find that here it only goes out to the maybe 600 people that I've got as subscribers, and so I get less of an audience. But I'll tell you, the quality of the picture, the fact that it doesn't go down on me, just like every woman I ever knew, is just absolutely astounding. And I stuck with YouTube because I like it over Facebook. Yes, Tom.
Yeah, I turned on the function that allows me to get a notification when you come on the air. It sent me an email. I click the link, and I'm right there on YouTube.
Right.
So I would just encourage anyone listening, if you, I think there's a little bell or something on underneath the picture.
Yeah.
Just click that on, and if your account is linked to your email address, you will get that notification.
Let me also mention to people that if you are not a subscriber to my channel, please just click subscribe for me. It's there, yeah. But also the thing is, you can take what I love about YouTube is you can actually take that page that we're on right now and make it a tab on your browser that's always there. And when it's time to go on the air, just go over there and just wait. It starts up. The show starts up automatically on that page, and I have it on live on my Facebook page, on my Gabnet page. I mean, it's things like that have made me like it so much. It hasn't had to do with me being a sycophant, Tim, and wanting to.
No, I'm kidding. I know that.
I think they created a great business model here for themselves, and they care about me as a user of it, and that I get a decent picture going out. This show never looked as good on Facebook. Never. It makes you guys all look better. In fact, you're not as blurry as you used to be, and pretty soon you're going to have to go out and buy makeup, and
So you've gone from AM to FM HD.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
For an audio equivalent, yeah.
I mean, but and I think YouTube does a phenomenal job. And so but I don't know what this woman's problem was. She did not look like she had everything going for her, and
she was playing the part just like Roseanne.
If I knew her,
of the star.
Well, if I knew her. And somebody said to me, do you know anybody that's nuts enough to go in somewhere and shoot someplace up? I'd point to her, okay? I mean, you could just see it.
Well, she was still American trying to be a Korean pop star, I think.
What we might find out is that she did have quite a following on YouTube because she's so wacky.
She did have quite a following, and they fixed it so she wouldn't come up in searches as much. They really shut down her viewership.
Well, she may have... No, wait a minute. That may have been her perception of it. You know.
That's possible.
You know, because
but,
usually
if they're
going to do something like that, no, it's not necessarily credible. I don't think.
Well, I think the bad part is
if they're going to do something like that, they're going to inform you that they're doing it, and they probably there's no sense that she was notified. This may have been in her mind that she wasn't getting, you know, the juice that she should have. It
could have been a competitor that hacked in.
Now, you're getting close to having your only conspiracy theory of the night.
Okay, well, let me go to here's the more important one. I think the sad thing is, the lesson to learn is, we have Trump in the White House, and he badmouths everybody, and if you're bad, you can go after those people, like at the Pizzagate thing, and now you had an NRA.
You're not making any sense at all now, Tim. But
pardon?
You're not making any sense.
No, I'm talking about the hate talk that we're getting from the White House. The NRA was doing hate talk.
You're changing subjects. We're talking about her and how the real story here is that she was probably not an internet phenomenon, but she had whatever sense of fame that she could possibly muster.
No, I'm not saying there's a direct link, but there's an atmosphere that we can go after bad people.
May I finish what I'm saying, Tim? That this real story here is almost a dystopian story, like you would do in a movie, about somebody who becomes so popular on the internet that all of a sudden they don't feel they're as popular as they once were, and they go to extraordinary means to keep that popularity. I think that's the story here. Is somebody,
you're correct. Yeah.
Is somebody who perhaps had, I would imagine she had a much larger audience than I do right now. Now, isn't that pathetic? Okay, what does that say about our society? It probably says they have taste because they won't watch me. But the point is, she got. Look, I'll bet you. I looked at her. I bet you she had at least 5,000 people looking on. I wish I had been able to get to her stuff before they took it down, because I'm sure it's not up anymore. Mm-hmm. And I'll bet she had, like, you know, maybe 5,000, 10,000 people, could be, you know, watching her videos with her in her leopard skin, outfit with her big hooters, right? That's enough to get you 5,000 right there on YouTube. And the wild hair, what? You know,
she acted like she was headed toward a breakdown, probably.
Well, yeah.
Her family had warned the police to that effect in some way. I'm not sure exactly what they said, but the police, the report that came through, I was listening to KCBS AM radio today, and they said that the police said that they didn't have enough to act on that information.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know, it's always woulda, coulda, shoulda after one of these things happen anyway.
Yeah.
You know, the cops somebody called the cops once on her. Oh, really? And they didn't do anything about it. Well,
a good question would be, how many calls like that do they get?
Yeah.
That would be interesting. And how many can they actually follow up on it? That would just be interesting to know how many they got.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, I think there's an interesting, deeper story here that needs to be investigated into the what could we call it? The seduction of fame, but not real fame. The most fleeting form of fame, which is being an internet star. Okay, and I think that's what happened here. Would you not say? Would you not agree with me, Tom, that maybe this is the bigger story?
Possibly, yeah. I was just thinking of different parallels. I mean, when you think of when you do the Andy Warhol's superstars, you know, these are just people that he just picked out of nowhere. And when they were suddenly got all this attention, many of them didn't know even how to handle it.
One of them jumped out a window and killed themselves. Another one tried to kill him.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Hello, Jack.
Hello there, Alex. I want to take exception to something that you just said.
What?
I allow Tim to have at least 2 or 3 conspiracy theories every night.
2.5. Well, I got up to pi one night, right, Jack?
Yeah.
I got up to pi. I never got my pie either.
Oh.
Check on that.
Well, we'll send you one. I will send you a Texas pecan pie, which has enough sugar to give anybody diabetes.
I was talking about this as an example. What I'm talking about, I was talking about this kid down at Parkland, down at the high school. What's his name?
Oh, you mean talking about David Hogg?
David Hogg.
David Hogg, yes.
That, in a way, he seems to be slowly getting seduced by the limelight. You know? And not that it's not for a good cause, but that he just seems like if he went a day without having some major network call him, he would start getting a Jones on it, you know. And,
well, you've had power, right, Alex? You know that feeling, right? When you're on top of your game, and you're in touch with all the people toward the top.
When exactly was that in my career?
Well, you got to go to a lot of good parties.
You know, it's when that light disappears, when the limelight disappears. You know, some people like this woman can go nuts. You know,
right.
when she
well,
felt, when she felt, when
he
she
has to have constant.
Does everything have to come back to Trump?
Well, until we get rid of him, yeah, he's ruining my life over here.
How's he ruined your life so far?
Well, the company that gave the permit to is the one that polluted our river, Kalamazoo.
All right, that's it. That's one too many conspiracy theories right there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a fact, not a theory.
That's a fact. Tim's right. That is a fact. That's not
and then you're using clean water money to give his people a raise over top of what the White House
my wallet is about $3,000 lighter because of this son of a bitch. Okay.
But
you know,
we have a city of Flint that doesn't get clean water still.
Yeah, but that started back in the Obama days.
Right, but Trump said he'd fix it, and he didn't do nothing.
Well, Obama said he'd fix it too.
And now they're using the money to give Pruitt's.
Wait a minute, Obama said he'd fix it, and he didn't do it either.
Our congressman was on tonight on national news talking about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it hits home.
Well, as we say in the ghetto,
yes, sir.
Another case of a jive-ass son of a bitch.
Yeah.
That is what we black folks say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I correct that Jack is wearing a tie tonight?
Yeah, I'm wearing a tie. Make fun of me. I had one of my paying gigs tonight.
A paying gig?
Yes.
Yeah. You know.
What's that?
I still do some things that have to do with media and make a little money from time to time.
Really?
But you know, you were talking about.
I haven't had a check for that in 5 years almost.
Well, hey, you know, you had a good run. Now, my run was not as big as your run. So when I stepped away from.
And when I get the runs, I get the runs.
Yeah, you do. But when you stepped out of the limelight of the business.
No, I was kicked out of the limelight.
I was trying to be nice.
I was unceremoniously kicked out of the limelight.
Well, the same thing happened to me. You know, they sold a goddamn radio station out from under me, and nobody else was doing anything like what we're doing here. And I said, to hell with it. I don't want to go back to playing music, although I could do it if I wanted to. You know, I said, I'll step out of this thing. And, you know, sure, I had the biggest moment of disappointment for me. I was getting gas at a service station near my house, and I was with a buddy, and I said something to him across my car, and this woman said, "You sound just like a guy I used to listen to on the radio," and for the life of me, I can't remember his name.
Well, you know, a similar thing happened to me.
That makes you feel good, right?
Yeah.
A similar thing happened to me. I was getting gas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I was getting gas.
Well, the best one that ever happened to me, I was doing a personal.
I lit a match, though. I was very, I was decent about it. So.
Yeah. Well, I was doing a personal guys from the radio station at a park, you know, and it was during the summertime, and here in Texas during the summertime, people do need a little liquid refreshment. and they had sangria for everybody who was, And this woman, is going around, and the program director of the station was introducing all of us to her. And he said, and this is Jack Bishop, who does afternoons. And she said, "Oh my God, he's black. He's black." And I said, "What? I'm black." No wonder they took the mirrors out of the men's room.
Yeah, exactly. So why do you have to dress up for whatever you do?
It was a posh gig, man. I was emceeing a concert for one of the big arts groups here in Dallas.
And so which of the hors d'oeuvres were you serving?
I'm going to let you get away with that, because you and I have known each other long enough for me to let you get away with that. But what bothered me, I didn't have the good job of parking the cars. Those guys got tipped.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And this gal who just think about this. We were mentioning this moments ago. This woman who went in and shot up YouTube had more hits than we do.
I think I'll
not anymore.
She may have had 5,000-10,000 people who watched her videos. We don't even come close to that.
All right. You've ruined my evening.
Well, we're going to be here tomorrow. She isn't.
Yeah, well, that's true.
You have ruined my evening, Alex. I'm going to get off. I'm going to go over in the corner. I'm going to hang my little head down and cry the blues, because it hurt when you said that.
Hey, Alex, I got a third one for you, Alex.
Yeah.
All the viewer analytics on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter is all fake. Nobody verifies it, right? They don't come in like they do viewership on radio and television and verify anything.
Well,
it could all be fake.
That's all fake too, if you ask me.
Yeah. Ratings and radio are always fake. We're always fake. Yeah.
Have you ever known anybody to be surveyed? I haven't.
And how would you survey them? Well, I know they can turn our cameras on when we don't want them on.
My head is swimming right now, because I'm trying to remember this show we watched, in which there were how many episodes? Like about 6 episodes about some woman who I think it's on Netflix. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. Who becomes enamored of this woman who has a lot of videos on YouTube or somewhere like that. So she goes to New York, and she's going to kill her, And one thing leads to another, and finally, in the end, it turns all around. She becomes the popular person on YouTube. I'm trying to remember what the show was. What was? See, that's what happens to me. There's so much television, I watch it, and then I forget what the fuck it was.
It sounds like an episode of Castle.
No. This was a mini series. Yeah.
I was trying to tell somebody about J.K. Simmons' show that's running now, or just finished up. Counterpoint.
Counterpart.
And I couldn't remember the name of it or what channel it was on. All I could say was very, very good show, confusing to watch, loved it. And somebody said, "Well, that just goes to show you're an old fart if you can't remember a TV."
Yeah, I can't even remember. We watched all the episodes of it. We really liked it, and now I can't remember what the fuck it was.
I can't even remember the name of the Secretary of State right now.
Neither can Trump. Do we have a Secretary of State? I guess not.
Pompeo's in the batter's box.
There goes Jack. He has to go because he's going to do his show. He's next over most of the same station. Did
you hear what McMaster said today?
Wait a minute, we're at the end of the show. We can't get into anything more.
At the end of the show, man.
Boy, you
come back tomorrow.
You're also it's the end of his. It was the end of his day today.
Tim, you're also the king of non sequiturs as well.
Well, he's worried. He's worried too about the country.
The worst non sequitur of all time was when I said to a guy here in New York by the name of Joe Franklin, who had a TV show. He said, "What do you want for your children?" And I gave this big impassioned thing about a world in which they don't blah 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 blah. And the next thing he said to me was, "Hey, you know who held the torch in the Columbia Pictures?" So I mean that's what you're doing, Tim. Non sequiturs. Hey!
It makes perfect sense to me.
We love you anyway, Tim. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, John.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, Jeff. Thank you, Tim, for adding to the batch. And thanks to Jack Bishop, who's next over most of this. Hey, that's it. Everybody, if you would, please wave goodbye so they can see you. Yes, there they go. Okay, that's our citizens panel for this evening. Thanks to them for calling us, because and no thanks to anybody else who didn't. Yeah, sometimes we get tons of people, and sometimes we just get a small group, but whatever we get, it turns into a nice discussion. Anyway, Jack's next with Amy. After that, it's Connections at 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow night at 9:30. Damien with The Exchange, Damien Chaplin, and then tomorrow night, I'll be here too. Same time, same station in life. In the meantime, if you see her, yeah, tell her I love her, okay? Bye.